Good morning. How are we today? Thank you very much for joining us today on this free agent webinar. MTD for income tax, how to support your small business clients. We have got stuff going in the Q&A. We've got a whole bunch of people who were already here before we even kicked off, which is really nice. And I suggest that we just get straight into it. So I'll run through a bit of an agenda and some housekeeping and some intro pieces, and then before too long we shall be into the meat of the webinar. So the agenda for today. So first of all, we'll just cover off a little bit of housekeeping, make sure that everybody is comfortable with what's going to unfold over the next hour or so. They'll do a very short bit of introductions and scene setting, and then we'll get into the kind of the main body of the webinar, which is our panel discussion. And hopefully we'll have a bit of time for Q&A. So that kind of Q&A is fairly loose and will take place throughout the webinar in the Q&A section, which I'll cover off in a second. And then what we do on these webinars, I'm sure there's a few people that have been on them before. We have people on the webinar who are new to free agent, never used it before, not used it for a while, and we have people who are using free agent on a daily basis. So what we do at the end is, if you'd like to stick around and see a little bit more of free agent, see what it's all about, then you're welcome to for sort of 10 or 15 minutes at the end. But if you want to drop off because you've seen free agent before and you don't want to see our MTD solution or final fixed management reports or any of the cool new stuff that we've got, then you are welcome to drop off. So, housekeeping for today's session. So the session will be recorded. Now, I know that there will be people joining us late. There'll be people leaving us early. The session will be recorded. It will be live from tomorrow. And if I'm speaking to you in the future, then it's live today because you're watching it, right? So Q&As. So we know that MTD and the stuff we're talking about today is quite a hot topic at the moment, right? And people have got a lot of questions about this kind of stuff. So we have a chat function, and we also have a Q&A function. So the chat function, feel free to let us know where you're dialing in from today, because we always like to know where everybody is. Everyone is dialing in from. One of our guests is dialing in from Spain today. And when I say guests, I mean panelists. Louise, we shall come to you. But yeah, if you want to just sort of chat around things, then that's fine. Use the chat. If you want to ask the team a specific question, so we've got Ben, Regina, Brooke, and Stu on the flight deck today who will be answering questions as we go along. If you've got a specific question that you would like to be answered, find the Q&A box and put the question in the Q&A, because otherwise it can get lost if the chat is popping and one of our guys might not get to it. So, and we also like to keep them there so that we can potentially, if you've got a bit of time, you can just round up any of the key ones at the end. The record is 77 questions within a webinar, so go nuts if you want to try and beat it as a group. So the next point I am sure won't be necessary, but we have a polite and respectful policy on free agent webinars. We are all here to learn. By all means, you can disagree with things or air your opinions, but do so respectfully and in a kind fashion, right? There's no need for digital rock throwing on our watches. If we think that people are being disruptive and ruining the learning experience for other people, then we will give you a warning. And if you don't heed the warning, you will be kicked off. Being kicked off an accounting tech webinar is probably not a great place to be. So, yeah, polite and respectful. We're all here to learn, and that's what we're here for today. So I'm sure there won't be no problems with it, but just have to make that point. And then polls. So there will be a number of polls that run through the sessions today, some at the beginning, some in the middle, some at the end. Some are about if you'd like somebody from free agent to come give you a call and speak to us about our platform. Some of them are about stuff that we're talking about in terms of MTD and our helping us to make sure that we're building the right solution and making sure that we provide the right assets and the right chat around the subject matter, so that we can help you get the most out of our platform and solve this this challenge that's coming up in the industry today. So that's what we're going to run through. If you are listening on demand, the polls, you can still interact with the polls. So you just click on the screen and you can answer them, and we will follow up with the responses as appropriate. So yeah, if you are listening on demand, you can still interact with the polls. And today, when the polls come up on the screen, you just have to kind of click onto the screen and interact with them on the screen. slightly different because we use a slightly different platform now. We don't use Zoom, so it's a slightly different experience, but cool. So, FreeAgent. So for those of you that are not familiar, we are award-winning accounting software that you and your clients particularly will love. We're HMRC recognised and we're MTD compatible. Our support operates at a 97% satisfaction rate. We quietly modest bunch here, but we have a really good mobile app, which we quietly consider to be comfortably the best in class. And for those of you that aren't familiar, we are owned by the NatWest Group. So if you are a NatWest, Royal Bank of Scotland, Ulster Bank or Mettle Bank customer, for as long as you retain the account, then you can have FreeAgent for free. Optional add-ons may be chargeable. So we're a great bit of kit. We'll help your smallest businesses with their bookkeeping. Introductions. For no other reason than I'm already talking and I built the slides and I put my face first, I shall introduce myself first. I'm Tony Stevenson. I'm a Senior Digital Enablement Manager here at FreeAgent. I spent the first half of my career bouncing around practice and industry, picked up my ACA along the way, and then I've spent about the same amount of time now bouncing around the software industry. So I've been at FreeAgent for just over 7 years. I get involved with sales, with partnerships, with being our customer's voice internally, evangelism externally, all sorts of different things, and I have a strong background in implementation as well. So I'll be steering the ship today, and I will be joined by our 3 wonderful guests. Becca, if you could introduce yourself to our listeners, that would be hugely appreciated.
Yeah, I'm Becca Durrant. I'm the Cloud Accounting Manager at Saffery. I've been with Saffery for just over 2 years now. I am an accountant by trade. So before I joined Saffery, I worked at another large firm where I was doing year-end accounts and the stats and things, but I've moved a bit closer into the software side of things now. So I work at Saffery with our outsourcing teams internally, looking at what software they can use and how they can make things more efficient. And then I work with lots of clients on digitalising their records, helping them make things, change their processes and things like that. So in terms of MTD, I've had a big focus on what software is going to work for our clients and working with both the accounts and tax teams of how we're going to move forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Dayle Rodriguez, my man, could you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dayle Rodriguez. I am Systems Advisory Manager at Kreston Reeves. Kreston Reeves are an accounting firm, mid-tier, 7 offices, 500 staff. My background is in web development, and I've been in the accounting space for about 6.5 years now.
So that was quite a strange experience for me then, because when you said good morning, the next thing I expected you to say was this, Dayle Rodriguez, this is Flobonga Monthrothecube, because Dayle and I co-host a podcast. So that was quite odd for me. So thank you very much, mate. And Louise Misiewicz, Mischief. Miss Mischief.
Yes, I'm often referred to as Mrs. Mischief. So Louise Misiewicz, I am the Operations Director at Optimise Accountants. We specialise typically in landlords in terms of what we do. My background is that I've consulted into large corporations across the world and UK government to help and guide them do different things for their internal teams, but also clients. So my hat firmly sits with changes and activities that require us and our clients to perhaps think differently and interact differently when it comes to technology.
Excellent. Thank you very much. If you want to guess in the chat which of our panelists today is dialing in from Spain, then you're more than welcome to. Cool. So we are going to have our first poll. So it might seem slightly premature, given that we haven't got into the meat of it yet, but we know that people come to our webinars and then have to drop off because there's a urgent client meeting they forgot about, or like, the photocopy is jammed or something along those lines, and wanted to make sure that they had shared their interest in somebody speaking to them beforehand. So you should be able to jump on and start answering the poll, or you need to click into the screen and then just start answering the poll. And I'm slightly concerned because I feel like, here we go. Yes, excellent. There we go. It's starting to go up. I was waiting because there's a little kind of widget that pops up on my screen telling me that people are doing it, and it wasn't there. That's because I hadn't got my mouse over the screen. So we shall give everyone a minute or two just to get through the poll. There we go. I'm going to go and see if I can find the chat. Here we go. will the slides be available afterwards? Was one of the questions in the chat. So no, we don't send the slides out typically, I don't believe, but they will obviously be available in the on-demand part of the webinar. So, and
Tony.
Yes, mate.
May I take a liberty and answer a question I saw in the chat about
Yeah, go for it.
I think someone asked, can you open a NatWest Business Bank account and get FreeAgent free? The answer is yes. And I occasionally advise clients to do it so they can get FreeAgent for free.
Ah, very kind of you. Thank you very much. An excellent question from whoever that was from. The numbers seem to have flattened out a little bit now, so we'll just hop on to the next poll before we get into the meat of it. So if you would like one of our team to conduct an MTD consultation with you, then please let us know here. So what is an MTD consultation? So that is the opportunity to spend 30 minutes, 45 minutes talking through your MTD approach with one of our team, who are all experts in how to put together these types of projects. There's no charge for them. They've been really useful. The feedback we've had on them, we've done hundreds of them, and the feedback on them has been excellent. Just essentially helps you to kind of get a bit of a sounding board about how you're going to approach this stuff, and hopefully this this webinar will fill in some of the gaps from a client perspective and make sure that we are on top of this stuff. So if you would like that, then indicate your interest now. If you are unsure and you're like, yeah, Joe, I want to hear the webinar first and then I'll speak up later, they will have an opportunity to do this. So there will be another opportunity later on in the webinar to express your interest in somebody getting in touch with you from FreeAgent. Cool. Numbers are still going up. So if you would like to respond now, and then we'll give everyone 20 more seconds to put their interest in, and then we'll move on.
You almost need that countdown music.
That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah. Cool. Right. The numbers seem to have flattened out now. So I am going to hop on to the next slide. And like I said, you'll have another chance later on if you haven't indicated your interest yet. Cool. So just a little quick recap, because there'll be some people on here who know MTD inside and out, and there'll be others who are less familiar with kind of what we're dealing with. So we'll just have a quick recap on, the when, the who, the what, and, what's the point of this project, and, what's the effect going to be. So when does it kick in? So formally it kicks in from April 2026. And that's when the sort of clock starts on the transactions that are affected by MTD for IT or MTD for income tax. So who is it going to affect? So it's going to affect your sole trader clients, and it's going to affect your unincorporated landlord clients. And then it will be initially those who have a combined income of over 50K, and that is income, that's not profit. And that is based on the tax return that has just closed to the 2024-2025 tax return. And what exactly is it? What does it mean? So in a nutshell, it means that you are going to be expected to keep your records digitally, and that you are going to be expected to file a summary of income expenses on a quarterly basis to HMRC. So what does that mean? It means that you're going to undertake your bookkeeping on an ongoing basis, and then file a summary of your the money that you've taken and the money that you've spent. And that is a summary. It's 2 lines at the moment, but you're going to have to do that on a quarterly basis. So it's a big departure from the usual, here's my box of stuff in January on January the 25th, and could you prepare my tax return? It's going to have to be done on a much more ongoing basis. And I think that behaviour change we all recognise is the big piece that is going to that affect our clients and the way that they work currently, which is often on a more annualized basis rather than an ongoing basis. So just getting slightly more into the weeds of it. So April 2026, you got sole traders and landlords with qualifying income over 50K, and then from April 2027 that drops to 30K, and then it will be based on the tax return that finishes in April next year, so the 2025-2026 one, and then 2028 will be over 20,000. At the moment, there's no plans to extend beyond 20,000. So the original incarnation of MTD for IT, or MTD ITSA as it was originally, that was going to be over 10K, but there hasn't been any indications that the plans are to drop down to that, but we shall see, I guess, nearer the time. And then obviously the tax return that's on is the 2026, 2027 tax return. It'll be assessed upon. Timelines for submission. So this slide often kind of makes people kind of wince a little bit, or realize actually that it's going to be quite complicated, because obviously once we are filing our 2025-2026 tax return, we are also going to be in the midst of filing the quarterly returns, and there's going to be this kind of green box in the middle, which is I'm doing one set of tax returns and then I'm preloading the data for the next set of tax returns, and I'm doing both those things at the same time. So what I would urge you to think about is how does that affect how I charge my clients, because I'm going to be doing kind of like double work at the same time. You know, if I charge them on a monthly basis, does that cover that work? Obviously there's going to be extra filing requirements for those quarters as well, so should I be charging them a bit more for that? The last webinar that we did went a lot more into that, so if you want to go and catch that one on demand, that will really get into the pricing side of things. Does this affect my letters of engagement and all those kind of processes? But yeah, just be mindful of this sort of double stack of work in the middle of the onboarding piece. And it won't be so bad once we're up and running. As you can see, it's sort of then you're just working on one set of returns once you've got through that double piece of work initially. But yeah, it's important to make sure that you've budgeted in for that. And ultimately, what's the point of this? You know, HMRC are trying to move us towards a system where there's the tax gap is smaller, and that this box of receipts or Christmas tree of receipts, eventually becomes maybe not a thing of the past, but is a smaller one than we've been used to historically. So. Excellent. So now we've got some what we call interest polls, which we're just interested to see what what our listeners are up to in terms of their activities around this stuff. So, what percentage of your clients have a qualifying income of more than 50% and will need to comply with MTD for April 2026? What I find interesting about this poll, don't forget you just need to click on the screen in order to be able to answer it. What I find interesting about this poll from an observational perspective is that we hear time and time again the same story, which is I thought I had X number of clients that were affected by this, and then actually when I sort of segmented my client base and actually looked at the combined incomes, and also then factored in for people that had bought a property and not told me in the last year, or increased the volume of their business twice, or added another side hustle onto the side of it, and that was qualifying as well, that actually the number is sometimes 3 times higher than they thought it was. I had one conversation with one gentleman, and he said he thought he had 7, and when he actually went into it, he actually had 25 clients that were that were affected by it. So do your best estimates, but I would urge you, if you haven't done already, to actually sit down and do as best you can to drag off last year's returns, so that you're able to actually have a proper look at this, because almost always it's slightly more or sometimes substantially more than people kind of had estimated that it was, because things change, right? New clients that came on board that told you that they had 40 grand's worth of income, and actually it turned out they had 3 properties they forgot to mention in the onboarding exercise. But thank you very much. So the numbers are starting to flatten out now, so if you could just stick in your last couple of people, and then I will share the results. So I think what will happen when I click on the next slide is that it shares. There we go. 1 to 25%. Yeah, I'm not surprised that that's the comment. It's about 30%, they reckon, HMRC of sole traders will be affected in the first cohort, which in some ways is kind of nice, because it's obviously a smaller number that you can kind of get comfortable with. There'll also be the bigger clients, so you would expect might be a bit more complicated. So it will give us a good foundation to get those up and running, but not under the volume of the whole lot. And then our final interest poll, and then we'll get into the discussion, is what percentage of your clients are using a business bank account? Dale's smirking. In fact, everybody's smirking, right? We know this is a big challenge, wading through the personal transactions, subscriptions. It's amazing what you can see about people's lifestyle habits when you look through their bank account, right? So, and you don't need to see that, right? You just want to get on with your job and just be able to, get the data that's appropriate for the bookkeeping, because it's part of the business, into a single bank account. So this is a good opportunity for us to plug Mettle. So Mettle is our NatWest's digital bank. It's free, and you can set it up. You get FreeAgent for free as well, and that just kind of stops the argument of like, well, I don't want to pay for a business bank account, which is usually the second reason after I just can't be bothered. It works fine for me, and and it gets sorted out by my bookkeeper or my accountant, and therefore I'm not fussed about changing because I don't see any real benefit to me. So yeah, thank you very much. The numbers are slowing down a little bit, so I'll give everyone a few more seconds just before we get into it. See if we can get to 50% and 250 people that have submitted an answer. We're not far off now. There we go. Right, final call. There we go. So these are the results. What percentage of your clients using business bank account? 30%. So 1 to 25% to 30%. Yeah, that doesn't 100%. So you're lucky 8.5% of you who've just got pure business bank accounts. I applaud you. That's excellent. That's really cool. I like that. That's really interesting. Thank you very much for participating in those, because it really does help us to know where to put our efforts. So let's get into the discussion. So how are you planning to let your clients know about MTD for IT? And we're going to start with Becca.
So obviously HMRC have already contacted a lot of clients, so we had to be relatively proactive in that respect, because no one wants, it was a bit of a hard balance, I think, because you don't want to go too early and go too soon before you're completely decided on your approach. But equally, we want our clients to know we're doing something about it. So we almost, when we knew the HMRC letters were going out, did almost a hold letter, sort of, we're on to this, we are dealing with it, bear with us. If you've got any questions, contact us. And we are getting a few kind of coming in here and there, but we wanted to make sure our clients knew that we were ready and that we just have it in hand before they got that HMRC letter. So it was a fairly approach of, there was still a lot of unanswered questions at that point, I think, as well. We were still trying to get to the bottom of exactly how some of our niches were going to work, and there were certain clients that we were thinking we don't actually know what they need to do just yet back at this point. So that's where we've got to at the moment, and then we're going to start rolling out now more sort of specific to each of our clients, what sort of things we're looking at.
And did you send that letter to everyone affected, or did you send that letter to everyone that could possibly be affected at any point, like as in all your sole traders?
We just did everyone affected at the moment. So we kind of sort of had a bit of a base of what we knew where the HMRC letters were going. We almost didn't want to go to those clients, the extra ones, just yet, and have them bombarding us as well, because we just felt that a bit at a time as we move through. So we sort of knew who were going to be getting the HMRC letters, or an idea. Obviously didn't know specifics, but yeah, it was just a letter to those ones that we knew were going to be affected.
Wicked, thank you. Louise, how have you tackled this?
So to Becca's point, those letters have gone out, but what we found, and I'm sure I won't be alone in this, is that actually HMRC's messaging really hasn't broken through the noise, quite frankly, for most of our clients, and they don't understand it. And it's two assumptions that often come out of, even if they have had a letter, they probably haven't read it properly. It's either they assume it's a very long way away and they've got loads of time to think about it, or it doesn't apply to them, can't apply to them, surely. And so the messaging that we've been using has been about teasers. So to Becca's point again, using teasers, not telling them, you're just about to be hit over the head with MTD, more breadcrumbs than anything to all of our clients, whether they are limited company clients or self-assessment clients, because the thing to matter is that some of our limited company clients are not our self-assessment clients at the same time, and they possibly try and go it alone on self-assessment because, quote unquote, it's easy. It's easy. We've given you the hard stuff, but we can deal with the easy stuff. And so we're trying to be as inclusive as possible with those breadcrumbs. So it's more about thinking subject lines like, big changes ahead for landlords, or tax returns, as you know, are changing. Want to know more? Want to know how it's going to affect you? So it's those things. And we've now got to the stage where we teased, in the next few weeks, we're going to tell you if we think you're affected for this first phase. And we've now achieved that and started the communications with our clients. It's for us, it's about giving mini journeys for our clients and getting our heads around that those journeys are different for a landlord compared to a consultant, compared to a sole trader, and really honing in on those points.
I really enjoy the idea of somebody receiving that letter and going, 2026? Well, they can't be in 2026. And 50K? Mine's 75, but that definitely won't apply to me.
Exactly. The big shredder bin is the filing cabinet.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Dayle, how have you guys approached letting your clients know about MTD for IT?
So echoing what Becca and Louise said, similar kind of thing. The one thing we've added is we try to change the narrative from a have to a get to. So like HMRC are like, you have to do this. And we're trying to say, look, no, you get the opportunity to do this, which sounds a bit weird, but it's more of a salesy approach, similar to MTD for VAT, if anyone had to deal with that a few years ago. It's like, for many of these people, it's an added cost to running their business or their side hustle, as you mentioned. But it's a case of like, well, actually, this can allow you, I don't know, an extra hour or two per week to do your side hustle, or an hour or two a week. These are cliches you guys have all probably heard already. An hour or two with your kids or your spouse, or whatever you want to do with the free time. And we're really focusing on the you get to. We know it's a pain. We know you don't like it when HMRC make you do these things, but you get to do that. You get the ability to use the software. That's what we're going with.
I like that. So we'll open up to free for all, so anyone can jump in. But what would you say to someone, to a practice that was on the cusp of kind of getting this stuff done, but hadn't done it just yet in terms of the first rounds of communications? What would your advice be to them?
From my perspective, just do it. You don't have to have a perfectly honed, beautiful marketing piece. You just need to communicate with your clients and let them know it's coming, and you're going to be there and support them with that journey, and that there will be a process that they'll follow, and you'll help them every step of that way.
Yeah. I think it's important to note that point you made, Louise, about my train of thought's completely gone. So the point you made about kind of like taking them on journey. So you need to make sure that we aren't treating this as a sort of one and done, like one email's gone out or one letter's gone out and that's it. Like if they don't come to us, then we probably are going to need to maybe use different methods for communication, email, or maybe written letters. Maybe the final ones will need a phone call if they're being resistant to engaging with the project. But it's probably not going to land perfectly the first time. So we are going to need to keep at it and make sure that we are ramping that strategy as we get closer and closer to it, because there will be some that are just kind of choosing the shredder as the filing cabinet and not engaging with the project even though it affects them. So cool, excellent. So how are you planning to tackle the challenge of onboarding these smaller clients onto software? So this, just to frame this a little, we're obviously as a team, not so much myself, I'm not trying to claim credit for other people's work, but like our team are out there day in, day out speaking to firms about this challenge, MTD for IT, right? And one thing that keeps coming up again and again, particularly right now, is this challenge of onboarding these smaller clients onto software and doing it successfully. So my question to you is like, how do you approach this? Like, what's that thing you really need to get right in order to make sure that this doesn't kind of come back later down the track and and bite you? And I guess that then kind of leads into the question of like, where does the line sit? Are you getting your clients to do some or all of the bookkeeping? Is that a departure from where we were at previously? Like, what are the challenges around this? I think this is a really, really interesting one. Dayle, we'll start with you, my friend.
Okay, so to make sure I've understood the question, how are we onboarding clients?
Yes.
On
software, but potentially, I guess, even into KR as well. But like, how do we make sure that they're set up for this, going from where they are with their fictitious shoebox or Excel spreadsheet, and and moving them onto a software platform?
Well, I'll use FreeAgent as an example. So what we did when we were working with our account manager FreeAgent is we got given the list of sort codes that NatWest, Mettle, and RBS used, and then we used our own invoicing system to match which clients those were that use a NatWest Mettle business bank account. Then we looked at what they earn and went, these are the clients we can target, and say, FreeAgent's free, use it, it'll be great. So that's one quick, easy win if you have a relationship with FreeAgent. In terms of onboarding clients, we also see it as an opportunity to build better relationships with clients. As you say, a lot of annualized clients who do self-assessment tax returns, they're going to have to see us quarterly, and it's better if we guide them through it. So it's an opportunity to upsell. How we're doing our pricing, because that's kind of linked to onboarding as well, we're kind of doing like a hybrid model. So you could do like a tiered service like bronze, silver, gold, right? Bronze being you give the client the software, you get them to upload, and then like they do the bookkeeping and we do a review, right? So that's kind of low level. And then like gold would be, look, give us everything and we'll process it for you. And then in between is maybe the client uses software, we do the bookkeeping. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
And then the other kind of model we're looking at is volume-based pricing. So like how many transactions are actually going through this? Because obviously more transactions, the more time it's going to take. And what we're trying to do is put the two together. So you might have like 1 to 50 transactions, bronze, and that'll be a monthly fee, versus 200 to 500 transactions per month, bronze, and that'll be a certain fee. Yeah. And basically what you're doing is you're doing the number of transactions, which is fair and reasonable to the client. They can understand the pricing. And then you're also capturing like the level of service you're going to deliver, who's actually doing it, because that's going to be the trickiest thing. Me personally, this is not a Kreston Reeves thing. I'm going to let clients do it themselves, mess it up, and then swoop in and save them. that is literally my plan for my client portfolio. I'm like, because there's going to be some clients who are like, it's not going to be that hard. I've done my self-assessment tax return for last year. Great, fill your boots. But when you mess it up, come see me.
Okay. Thank you. Louise.
I feel like I'm possibly going to duplicate some of what Dayle said, but also it leads really nicely into some of the additional questions we're going to go through. So I might feel a little bit duplication here, but for us, we've kind of looked at it from the best case scenario in terms of those clients who are really what I would describe as tech savvy, very comfortable, feel uncomfortable when they don't have a phone in their hand, as opposed to the other way around. Okay. And also looks at it from the angle of, trying to convince your granddad that Monzo's better than cash end of the scale. And we've looked at both of those routes to try and get our head around, back to my point, mini journeys, really getting our head around those. And what we're trying to do is bring to life the friction of quarterly submissions done badly to help clients get over that initial almost hedge, almost first jump of, should I be doing this? It's not should you, it's how best to do this for you, and really looking at how we help them to do that. And for some of them, to Dale's point, it's very much self-help. There are certain individuals in our client base that we know won't necessarily take well to listening to us tell them, understandably. They want to go away and test it, break it, and then come back and go, I think I broke it, what do I do next? And then there'll be the other groups of individuals who we're there ready to support in terms of demos. We'll do live screen recordings together where we'll just say, I tell you what, let's try this piece of software. It's free to trial. Let's try and invoice ourselves just for £1. Let's see what happens when you do that. Or for some of our clients who are very mobile focused, and this will be actually part of the answer to one of the next questions. So I'm time traveling here, sorry. But it is pretty much, you've got your phone in your hand. Let's go straight to phone. Don't even look at your computer. Yep. Don't need to turn your computer on. Let's just use your phone. You're very comfortable with your phone for your banking and anything else. Let's just get started there. You don't need to do anything other than that. So it's really trying to understand, and then to a degree, put the individuals into those groups. Not to say that they're not individual, they are, of course, but to help us best tackle the things that we know they need to deal with, then that's the approach we're trying to go about it. But for us, it starts with the friction. What happens when it goes badly? So let's work backwards from that to make sure that isn't where you end up.
I like that. And that is profiling it continues on from your from what you were saying about the messaging and making sure that like the messaging goes to the right people in the right fashion and taking those people on those journeys, and then that continues then down into your client base to help them to actually kind of get on board. Because like we know, some people you can chuck FreeAgent to and they'll just go, oh, brilliant, yeah, and they'll have raised an invoice and connected their bank feed and followed our flying start menu, you know, seamlessly. And you know, and that is one bit of feedback that we always get about the platform. Not that, you know, this conversation is all about that, but like, is that there's a line, and there's a line above which, if the software is easy enough to use, then what you get out of it is good quality and you can work with it, and there's a bit of tidying up. And then that below that line is like the quality of what I've had out of it as the accountant when it's been done by the business owner is not good enough, and I have to go in and do substantial tidy up work, which in and of itself is not the end of the world, provided that you've budgeted for that in terms of prep the conversations, and also to like you've got the capacity to be able to do that. Because if you're expecting 200 perfect accounts and actually you get 2 perfect accounts and the rest have all got tidy up work to do, then you might find yourself in a bit of capacity troubles in order to fix all of that stuff. But yeah, and that is one piece of feedback that we get again and again, is that like consistently FreeAgent users are above the line in terms of the quality of the client's work on the platform that comes through. So that is really that's really interesting. I think that's a really good way of approaching it, and I would urge people to think about that as well. And those different buckets of, I like the way you've measured it as well. So like if they feel uncomfortable with a phone in their hand, or they feel uncomfortable without cash in their wallet, then you've probably got some pretty good buckets to start with of the different clients that you can treat in different ways and give them the appropriate support that they need. Becca, your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of echo what Louise and Dayle have already said, really. But we have recorded some really short videos of some of the softwares that we're sort of suggesting to clients. Almost in like when we do communicate with them, we can show them these short videos, give them an idea. Because I think from our side, I think a lot of clients that have never used any of the software before can almost be quite scared by it until they see 5 minutes of a clip and realise it's not that scary. And actually they use apps on their phone all the time, which are quite similar to what these software looks like. So in terms of onboarding, I think once we know who's doing what, we're still at very much a point with who's doing what, who's doing the, is it going to be done by our accounts teams, tax teams? Is the client going to be doing it? I think our approach is very much going to be, we're going to offer to help with the onboarding. And then we'll be sort of, you know, your training, like Louise mentioned, we're having group training sessions. Some of those clients will prefer one-to-ones. We're quite lucky we've got kind of cloud team at Saffery, which will be kind of focusing on that, so we can kind of dedicate a bit of resource to that area. And then it will be some of those clients will then go off and do it themselves. And then I think a vast majority of ours will be onboarded by us, and with the help of the software we're using as well. I think it's using those people that you've got the software that can be really helpful if you've got ways of onboarding them quicker. I think some part of our challenge, which I don't think we've mentioned, but it's the onboarding at the HMRC side as well, which is as that's got to be done individually. We're starting to think ahead about that as well, to make sure that when we do tax returns for clients for last year, we're thinking about the onboarding of the MTD for those clients, because that's another process in itself.
Yeah, definitely. And there's lots to be done, right? Because even the best, most capable clients still require some intervention in order to get them kind of like set up and show them where the mobile app is and some form of touch point. It's always a little known thing, but FreeAgent have the ability to be able to kind of like book in with one of our support guys for 20 minutes, half an hour, and they'll show you the basics as well. So if you need to lean on us as a support resource to help with that onboarding from a software perspective, then feel free to. There's no charge, and it's not oversubscribed, put it that way, and it probably should be. Right, so we're at 20 to 12 already. So we are going to go on to the next question. So how do we go about selecting the right tech for these smaller clients? And I believe it is Louise's turn to start.
Okay, so I'm going to state the real obvious now. What we're looking at is not best tech, it's best fit. And that's slightly different for different clients. Yep. And again, it's trying on those mini journeys and perhaps putting on different coats in those mini journeys to go from the Monzo-loving individual to the not-so-Monzo-loving individual. For us, it's also about friction, not feature. So for some of our clients, they don't need a massively sophisticated system that has bells and whistles and tells them when to stand up and sit down and make a cup of tea and all of that jazz. What they need is something that's, quite frankly, boringly reliable, easy to use, and gets them from start to finish very quickly, without panic, without frustration, and without worry. And so what we've been doing is we've been looking at different systems on behalf of our clients and almost wearing the hat of those clients to try and get a head around those different products and make sure we're looking at the right thing for them. You know, we've tested out things like how the help desk support works, how the in-app system works, how easy is it to flick between computer screen to mobile phone. And those things have really mattered to us to help our clients get their heads around what they need. And spending time with those client groups to try and understand more about it, whether that's been because we've had them on phone calls. So we're now at the phase where we've done the teaser, we've started the communications individually with clients, and we are now hosting them on one-to-one sessions. And we've done nearly 65% now of our clients who will be in first wave, or what we think will be in first wave based on the data we have. Notwithstanding, Tony, those clients who've forgotten to tell us about that additional income that's flowing in that they haven't yet identified in their data. But in terms of those conversations, what's becoming really clear and really helpful to us to continue to hone how we get the right pieces of tech working for them is that more than anything else, they just want something that doesn't feel rocket sciencey. They just want something that feels really intuitive and easy. And I would say 7 out of 10 of our clients just love that mobile phone app ability. And if that's part and parcel of what they get, and it doesn't look like it was built in 2009, then quite frankly, it's a goer. And that's where, for me, I feel that FreeAgent has really, really done the biz.
That's good to know. We are very, let's say, we're a modest bunch at FreeAgent, but we kind of think our mobile app is pretty good, and we get really good feedback on it. And I think that it's a lot about framing and about context, right? So we talk internally about this kind of idea of jobs to be done, rather than it being I need to file my taxes. Like, kind of that is the job, but actually, like, there's a bunch of sub jobs in there that are relatable to a business owner in a way that kind of bookkeeping isn't, because most of them aren't trained in it, and and have some basic understanding of it. But ultimately, like, it's like, raising an invoice is one thing, but like, we need you to get paid for the job you've just done is probably more relatable language. And trying to think about it from a what are the jobs that we can get done that will help this process in isolation is a really good place to start. And then, like, over time, you can see how they fit into the wider picture of making sure that all of our transactions are labeled correctly, so that we can compile in a compliant fashion when it comes to the time further down the track, and that helps you as practitioners in order to be able to do that. But that idea of being able to kind of like take a picture of your receipt, because we need to capture that and raise an invoice, or have your bank feed connected, those kind of things, refresh your bank feed data, that sort of stuff really helps to engage people. And like saying I need you to use accounting software is can feel quite scary, but saying I just need you to download this app so you can raise your invoices on the app on the phone feels a lot more familiar than perhaps it could do.
And that's a lovely point, Tony, just to finish that off. I think what I'm saying, and what I'm seeing from my clients that they're saying to me, is they do want features, but it has to be frictionless.
Yes.
Doesn't need to be feature rich, it just needs to be feature appropriate, but it needs to be frictionless. Yeah.
Becca.
Yeah, I think that's similar again. But we've sort of put together some personas. We've taken all the data we've got from the most recent tax returns and tried to create sort of the most generic personas we can. There's always there's lots of niches, particularly at Saffery, but we have tried to sort of put together some personas of what do those clients want? What are they actually looking to get out of this? Are they ones that we just need to go through the most basic compliance, let's just get these done? Or there are going to be a few clients that I think we can use this more as an opportunity for as well. Those ones that are wanting to do more with digital records, or wanting to get more out of their finance and their bookkeeping, but don't at the moment. So we've tried to kind of think of, we can have two options. There's ones that just want to get things done, and are there those clients that I've been trying to work on for ages, that actually really want to get more, want to grow their business. So we have got a bit of both. So yeah, for us, it's been really trying to put together some personas and think, here's a couple of options, what's going to fit them best. But it's the same, not one size fits all. And we've always gone with that approach of what do they actually need. And a big one for us, I suppose, has been like the landlords. Some of those we think might be hard to sell to. For some of those that have just got properties that have, you know, just been making money, and suddenly they're having to do this extra sort of admin burden. Is there something else we can sort of incentivize them with? Is there a solution out there that is better, where we can sort of talk to them about what they can actually get out of it, regardless of the MTD? It can kind of just tick that box, but how can we manage your properties better, or do they just want the cheapest option they can just to get their MTD quarterly submissions done? So yeah, it was kind of all different. There's lots of different approaches. I think it's going to be moving continuously through the whole process. I think we're going to keep coming up with new personas and new different clients that are asking for different things.
And those landlords are a really good example of somebody that, like, one thing that we've identified through working with that cohort and, you know, the landlord product in FreeAgent is that there's this kind of two identities, right? So there is, I identify as a business owner that has properties and my business is renting out properties or whatever it might be. I am somebody that does not identify as a business owner, and I just identify as somebody that happens to have a passive income through a property that I, you know, like when I met my partner, we both owned a property, so we just kept mine and rented it out, or you know, I got left a property in a, you know, inheritance or something that was not like, it wasn't the point of it wasn't that they wanted to become a business owner that rented out properties and that was their primary income. It was, you know, I just want to rent this out and, you know, and enjoy the passive, he says, in inverted commas, income from being a landlord. Every landlord I've ever spoken to says it's about as unpassive as income as you could possibly imagine. So yeah, I would like to say, just before I go on to you, Dayle, that you both echoed the same point, which we firmly, genuinely believe in at FreeAgent, which is that the right software for the right client, depending on their needs. Like, we never want to shoehorn clients into software that is too much for them, which doesn't happen much with FreeAgent, given that we start right at the bottom of the, you know, the one man or one woman contractor type of business, one person business, and range up to, you know, 10, 20, 30 employee businesses nowadays with the capability within FreeAgent. But you know, we never try and push practices or businesses to go on. In fact, we actively dissuade them from trying to put, because we get a lot of, because it's with NatWest and it's free, we want to shoehorn this business onto it so they don't have to pay for software. And we try and actively dissuade people from that, because you'll have a bad experience if it doesn't have the capabilities that you know, that you need for a 50-person business or a 100-person business. We are quite happy to let the other, you know, the rest of the market cater for those that is you know, in a position to do so. So you know, but I think the thing that's frustrating from a software perspective is to see why did we put them on that piece of software? Because we put the last business that came through the door on that piece of software, and we didn't really give any consideration to really whether it fit with that persona or that personality that was behind that business. So yeah, right software for the right client always is the right way to go, and you'll end up benefiting from that now and in the future. Dayle, your thoughts on this one?
It's always hard going last on these panels because
I know, right? Yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah, you're just like you're crossing off the things that have already been said.
Without waffling. Okay, so an analogy. I think Louise mentioned about being frictionless, right? Analogy. Yeah. You know, we all have to recycle. Different local authorities do it differently. Some people have 3 bins, some people have 6. One of the biggest reasons why most people in the UK don't recycle is because it's hard work. If it was less effort for us, we'd all do it better, but we don't, because again, different local authorities do it with different bin colors: orange, green, blue, brown. Similar with software, like if you make it as easy and as frictionless as possible, according to what he said, then people adopt it, right? You just remove those barriers. Practical advice I can give. I use a formula called need times execution, need N times E. Essentially, it's what does the client actually need to get out of the software? And you rate things on a scale of 1 as in not, it's a nice to have, and a 5 is a need to have. And then you multiply it by execution, which is 0 as in the software doesn't have that feature, and 10 it smashes that particular need. And you kind of create a list. And what you can do is you can apply that to all the different softwares if you have time. I do, is my job. And then go, okay, this actually meets the need of that particular client group with that particular software. So, for example, for our landlords, we've chosen Hammock because, you know, we looked at the HMRC list. I think there's about 40 on there now, but when we looked, there's about 30, because I think each month another 5 gets added. And just to be clear, we've got a team who are horizon scanning the HMRC list of approved MTD softwares. But essentially, we use this formula. Okay, we know that our landlords need these things, and this is definitely a 5. They need to have it in their software, otherwise it's pointless. And anything that comes out that doesn't have that, a 5 thing, we know it's not for our landlords. And what's really good about that is it's completely objective, right? It's not because Dayle likes hammock or because Richard likes zero. It's like, no, it does this because it does that for that client and meets their need. So that's a bit of advice I give to people. If you can try and like quantify why you're choosing that software, you can, one, justify it to the client. We've done research, we've done the testing for you. We're not charging you for this, by the way. We've gone out for you and done this. It speaks volumes to the client. It shows that you care, and they can't really argue with the logic of it. And then one other caveat as well, throw some emotion in there. Again, like if you're going to try and sell to people, you can't just sell on logic alone. You have to show them why it works for them. What do they actually get out of it? I know nothing I've said here is new, but yeah, just echoing what you guys have already said.
No, I actually really like that. I like the idea of removing personal feelings and bias on a particular software, because ultimately, if we're practitioners, like it's easy to see how, like, I like this piece of software because I know how to use it. And therefore, when I sit down in my chair, I know how to use, like, X piece of software. And therefore, I know I'm going to get out the door today at 5:31 because I know how to use this piece of software for this particular client. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is the right piece of software for that client, because it might be that if you'd learned how to use their other piece of software to the same level that you knew the first piece of software, that the client could do their job in 40% less time, and that you would also get out the door at 5:31 or even maybe even 5 o'clock. But there's obviously that kind of sunk cost to learning that piece of software as practitioners, and we can't. I don't recommend learning all of them because you can't. But learning the key 1, 2, 3 pieces of software that that are prevalent within your client base and that meet the needs of it, but doing it via a system of like you've just described there, Dayle, is a really good way of removing those personal biases from the system, and being able to support why you chose that, especially if something later down the track comes out to be not how you wanted it to be. Then you've got something to kind of fall back on, right? So fully support that. And to your point earlier about going last and not having anything to say, I was a best man at a wedding once and had stupidly not compared notes with the groom about our stories and our speeches, and he stood up before me and told the story I was going to tell, which was the main story of my speech. So I was then a little stuck and had to basically just retell the same story, but just do it from my own perspective and pivot on the spot. So how's that for having the words taken out of your mouth? My own fault, really. Don't worry, I was fine. Like, it was a good speech, but it was not the pressure that you need when you're doing a best man speech. The final full question that we've got, and we've got 7 minutes left, so we're going to rattle through this one relatively quickly. I think we're back to Becca. So how do you plan to manage the collection of data with your clients?
This is definitely going to be a change of culture for some of our clients. I think this is going to be probably the biggest positive change if we get it right. But it's going to probably be the biggest challenge because we do have a lot of clients that used to bringing in their records at Christmas. As you know, tax teams are busy in January. So I think we've touched on it a bit before, but it's about showing how easy it is to get your records over quickly. So that, again, it's telling the clients in the right way. It's not, we need your records more regularly. It's, we just need you to send your invoice, put your invoices in this way to this software. We don't even need to mention the software in some cases if we're doing the work for them. It's going to be a case of, this is how you do it. It's really easy. We just need you to do this. This is the new process that we're going to be doing for collecting your records. So I think this is definitely one that we're not at the bottom of yet. We haven't got to a point where this is what's happening, this is how we're going to do it. But we've been doing it in our outsourcing teams where we do our bookkeeping and processing for clients forever, so for ages now. So it's been, we know what we're doing. It's just spreading that out to those clients that aren't quite used to that process. Which
is the challenge, right? Is here is my box of receipts or spreadsheet or bag of stuff that I would bring to you in January, and fix this for me and turn it into a tax return, and I'll pay this amount of money, and you're now having to undertake that on a ongoing basis so that you can file quarterly. And my my challenge to folks that want to use bridging software is always like, that's fine, and you can keep doing that, but you've still got to file quarterly. That's not going to get you out of the quarterly filing requirement, which is, for me, when you move everything else out the way, like that's the thing that if I'm a business owner, I am going to be the most, I want to use the word upset, but like I'm going to find that the biggest change to my operations is, we need to interact quarterly, not annually. But actually then, getting the software in place means there's less requirement for that. So Dayle. Thank you, Becca.
Honestly, I'm going to be very, very short. Nothing better to add than what Becca said already. Similar approach. We're going to have internal slots. Some clients will still bring us paper and we'll process. They'll never know they're on software and we'll just do it. It is what it is. Ideal scenario, they all have some form of OCR or e-invoicing system. It goes straight in. They won't all have it. I'm not going to lie and say we're 100% cloud-based. We're not. But yeah, no, same as Becca. We'll just do it and get it done.
Cool. Nice. And as long as you plan for that and you've got the capacity to undertake it, then it's all gravy, right? You can systemize whatever chaos as long as you're comfortable with the parameters of it. Louise.
It's a great question, isn't it? Because this is where all that hard work that's gone into making the mini journeys, thinking like a marketeer, not an accountant, getting messages out that make sense to clients in their language. This could all be for nothing if you don't get this next step right. Clean, structured data. However that might flow to you, however your clients might choose to provide that to you, that's what you need, and you need it in a very specific time zone to get it all done. So it's thinking through, no longer thinking necessarily on the mini journeys. This is where those mini journeys converge to one system that requires HMRC to have that data by a certain date. And so really, at this stage, it's about determining whether it's going to be quarterly check-ins, automated nudges, how you're going to do whatever you're going to do with the data, or whether you're just going to press a button because the client's already loaded it in for you with their own internal bookkeeper, whatever it is. It's now just having those specific lines of activity aligned and making sure the client no longer changes their mind. If you've done the great work up front of this, worked out which technology or systems or processes are going to work for them, it's about making that the absolute default. No movement, no maneuvering around that now. It's set. Everybody's happy. Let's just get going.
Wise words. So, as we went towards time, final thoughts. Dayle, any final closing nuggets of wisdom that you would like to bestow upon our listeners?
If I can, I'm going to try and address a comment made by Paul Norfolk about being a smaller practice and managing the workflow. And hopefully I'm not teaching Paul how to suck eggs. My experience about managing workflow is managing client expectation. So when it comes to getting data from clients, having it clear in your letter of engagement or your proposal, whatever you use, we need to have this data by this date. If not, we cannot process on time. If you cannot process on time, your work will go to the bottom of the queue. I know it sounds harsh, and I know it's easier said than done, especially if you've got legacy clients, but it's an approach we took about 6 months ago. For some of our clients, we tested it, and what we found out is it works, right? So if you're worried, if you're a smaller practice and you're worried about your workflow, hopefully I'm not teaching you how to suck eggs, but if you manage the client expectation first and be very, very firm in your agreement with them, it really can help. Clients do rise to the challenge. They will actually get you things on time. I know we're not used to having it happen, especially, January, but you can start to have that happen. And if you get, 5% of them doing it as opposed to the 0 you had before, well, that's a 5% improvement. So hopefully not teaching you to suck eggs, but manage the client expectation and have it written down.
Lovely. Louise, your final thoughts?
For me, MTD really isn't about quarterly updates and software. It's about changing clients' connection to their numbers and the frequency with which they connect to those numbers. And if you can master that, as opposed to it being a done to a regulation activity, but more a relevance activity, I think you're going to head down the right lines and get better results more frequently.
Yeah, it's easy to forget when things are forced upon you that, like, cloud accounting has been around for almost 20 years, and there's a whole bunch of benefits to going down this road that are easily forgotten when you're told you must do this thing and you must change your behavior because HMRC have said that you must. So we shouldn't forget the benefits of real-time data and being able to see your numbers as you go and being involved in those numbers and understanding how you can move them positively to affect change in your financial situation and, you know, and subsequently your life as well. So thank you. Wholeheartedly agree. Becca, we'll close out with you.
Yeah, it's sort of on the back of what Louise just said, but this is a real opportunity for us to sort of build those relationships with some of our clients that maybe we don't speak to often enough. So I think these touching points, and again, not just going down the road that MTD is just for compliance and we've got to do this, more of this is a really great opportunity to improve the relationships we've got and show that additional sort of customer and client service that we offer. So I think that's really important to remember that throughout the whole of this process.
Amazing. And very unusually for me, we finished the main part of the webinar actually on time, which is, as most that know me know, that I do like to talk. So I am just going to jump. So we did say Q&As, but I can see that there have been 86 questions asked in the Q&A section. So we've set a new record, which is great. Well done, team. Thank you very much. We won't have time to go through them, but if you want to go and review them, then you're more than welcome to. I think you'll be able to see them all. And obviously there'll be a whole bunch of stuff that's gone along in the chat as well. I largely tend to ignore them as I go through because I find it ultra distracting while trying to ask the questions while the Q&As are going on. So just a couple of other bits before we get into the demo. So so we have recently gone live with management reporting packs in FreeAgent. So if you want to go and check those out, then you're more than welcome to. So that's the ability to be able to kind of pull together reports into a nice neat little pack, which is just the start of our journey on that road. And there'll be a whole bunch of extra stuff kind of continuing to drop in that area that will improve that experience beyond what is already a pretty high starting bar. That should not be overshadowed or undershadowed by our find and fix tool. So for those of you that are used to being able to bulk reassign or adjust or amend transactions on some of our competitors who do this very well, we have released a similar function which allows you to basically kind of go and change certain things within FreeAgent in bulk that you didn't used to be able to change in bulk. It's been wildly popular. Excuse me, and I'd urge you to go and check it out. Finally, before we jump on to sort of some thank yous and then the live demo section, so we have been running now for quite some time our FreeAgent accountant and bookkeeper community, which is powered by ProNation. So it's for our partner base. It is a Facebook community of, we've got just over 500 in there now, and Lucy Cohen, who I'm sure a few of you will be familiar with, and Will Farnell, again, the same, run that. And there's loads of comment threads in there. You can ask questions about, integrations, features, things that are going off in the industry. And then there's a 90-minute call where we all kind of come together once a month and just tackle the challenges that practices are facing out there in the world. So if that sounds like a bit of you and you would like to join, then just scan the QR code and follow the questions through. And if you're a FreeAgent partner, then you'll get accepted and you'll be pushed through into the community, which is a pretty cool place to be. So excellent. And then just before we kick into the live demo, and I'm sure Regina is just getting kind of up and running now, I'd just like to extend a big thank you. So we've had nearly 500 people on the webinar today, which is no small number of people that we've helped to hopefully positively impact from an MTD perspective. So a big thanks to Mark and to all the people within FreeAgent that put these webinars on. We do webinars properly, and that means that there is a ton of work that goes on beforehand and a ton of work that goes on after as well to make sure that everybody knows where they've got to be at what time and it gets put in front of the right people, right? So I am just the gun for hire that turns up and talks through the webinar, and I don't claim to put the shift in that the rest of the FreeAgent team do in order to get these things up and running, and we hope that they're useful. A big thank you to all the folks on the flight deck, so to Ben, Regina, Stu and Brooke, who have answered all the questions today, 88 of them now. Fabulous work and hugely appreciated. I also then would like to say thank you to our attendees for sticking around, and we'll jump onto the live demo shortly. But finally, a thank you to our panelists. You've been brilliant. We had a really good crack on the pre-call, and I knew that this would be a fun webinar, and it has been a fun webinar. I've really enjoyed it. There's been some really good insights, some stuff that I'll definitely take away in terms of my conversations around MTD. So thank you kindly. I really hope that the attendees have got plenty out of it. The numbers have stayed pretty steady as we've gone through it, which is usually a pretty good sign that everyone's getting lots of value out of it. So just as we jump into the live demo now, Regina will take over. I'd just like to say, again, thanks to our panelists. You are welcome to drop off now. Class is dismissed. Of course, if you want to stick around for the demo, then you're more than welcome to. But thanks again, and I will catch up with you all soon as I hand over to Regina now.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everyone. So I'm sharing my screen now. Tony, if you can let me know if you can see it and it's a good size. Yep, perfect. So this is the practice dashboard. So this is where you're going to manage all your clients' licenses and also access their bookkeeping. So in order for you to create the license, you can go to clients, top right. Add client, create a new license. And what you're going to see here is a type of license, solo trader, for you to manage the self-employment income for your clients, and the unincorporated landlord. So it's good to understand that how the licenses work. So if you have a client that has a self-employment income and also rental income, in FreeAgent, they needed to have 2 different licenses, and then you're going to manage their bookkeeping for each type of income in those licenses, okay? Another point here, the unincorporated landlord is a license per portfolio. For example, if you have a husband and wife that have few properties, you are going to have 1 landlord license to manage all the portfolio, and you can submit the MTD for both of them under the same license, okay? Which makes it easier in terms of preparing the bookkeeping and also the submissions for MTD. So I'm going to go to my clients area, and following this same example, I have here same client with 2 licenses, and I'm going to explore the landlord license first. So if I click on the far right here, suite 2, I'm going to move to the clients area, which is going to be the environment with the blue banner, so you know you are in the client's area. So all the licenses in FreeAgent, the navigation is pretty consistent, which makes it easier. And for the landlord license, what you're going to have here, the property page, where you're going to create all the properties for your client, and that property becomes a cost center. So if I click on property 1, for example, you're going to see the profit and loss account for that property, and you can export and check other tax years as well. Okay, then what the system is going to do, every time that you have and receive a rental income, or you pay for a rental property, then you need to allocate the income and expenditure to each property. Okay, now going to the top right at the name of the client, I'm going to go to settings, and here I'm going to go to users. So in users, you are going to create all the records for each owner. So suppose that you have the wife, the husband, and the kids. So you can add all of them and make the MTD submissions for all of them. If you have, for example, a situation where you are managing the portfolio for this family, but perhaps one of the owners is not your client, you add that person in there for calculation purpose. You don't need to give them access at all. It's for the system to calculate their share of income and expenditure. Okay. Now going back to the settings again, and I'm going to go to property settings. And this is a very important part of the system, and also fairly easy to use. In here, you are going to tell the software the ownership of all the owners for each property. So if I add a new ownership here, suppose for property 4, suppose that I have bought that property halfway through the year. So I can put here 24. The system is going to give me a list of all the owners, and I can add here the ownership for each of them. When I save, you're going to have here, and what the system is going to do is going to allocate the income and expenditure for property 4 according to the information or the split that you added. If that split changed during the year, is not a problem. You can add a new ownership for property 4. Suppose that it changed on the 7th of April 25, and everything goes to Brian at 100%. Then FreeAgent is going to add that record and process with the split of the income and expenditure accordingly to each property, to each person. Okay, and there were some questions on the chat regarding how FreeAgent is going to populate the MTD submissions. So under the accounting categories, so FreeAgent chart of accounts, for each type of license, you are going to have that specific chart of accounts. And here, what you're going to see, the structure of the chart of accounts is the description, the code, and the tax return box for that specific page. On this case, the UK rental, UK London property pages. You are going to be able to add more nominal codes in here, or to change the description, or to choose another tax reporting code that is allocated for that specific nominal code. So that's why FreeAgent puts all together for MTD. Okay, now under the banking area, so suppose your client has a bank account. It can be with NatWest or not with NatWest. It's good to remember that even if the client has a free license, because of having a business bank account within NatWest Group, they can set up the bank feeds for other banks as well. Okay, how this is going to work? FreeAgent is going to work with machine learning. You don't need to put any rules in here. The system is going to learn what you want to categorize for the similar or recurring transactions. For example, I have here residential interests of mortgage payments. So if this repeats over time, then FreeAgent is going to remember that residential interest payable, and is also going to remember the property. And you have the drop-down list here. What is going to happen? FreeAgent is going to suggest that category, and once you approve, the color changes here for orange to green. Okay, you're going to be able to also break down the line. For example, if you are going to pay insurance for all properties, then you can go to more options. Suppose it's 1, and you're going to put insurance for property 1, and you create a new explanation. Then FreeAgent is going to put the balance here, and you can break down this as much as you required. In terms of the income, it's the same. So we are going to have the rental income here and the list of the properties on the drop-down list. For example, if the client receives the net income direct from the estate agent, it's the same situation. You can suppose that they received 1,600. You can change here. And then FreeAgent is going to put the difference as a money out, and then you can put here and put letting fees and property 1 here. Okay, so there might be cases where, for example, the client gives you the estate agent statement. So what you can do here is import a CSV file, and the CSV file needs to be on the format of the FreeAgent, which is going to be the column date, amount, and description. Once you upload, you're going to have the transactions, and the machine learning is going to help you with the categorization as well. Okay, So it's going to, over time, as you use FreeAgent, the system is going to automate the explanation of the transactions to make it easier. Now, how you're going to submit this to HMRC under taxes, self-assessment. You're going to have here the drop-down list of all the owners. So you choose the owner, go to 24, 25, and this is going to be your MTD screen. So you are going to have the quarters aligned side by side, and the income and expenditure for each quarter. You're going to have the boxes here according to the self-assessment pages, and you can drill down to the boxes if you want to, and export to Excel if you want to do any analysis. And at the end of the year, you can add the adjustments as well, which is going to be under the annual summary. So you're going to have adjustments on this case specifically for the UK London property pages. How the submissions are going to work over the tax year, you're going to have 4 quarterly submissions, which HMRC calls it an update. The updates are sent cumulative. So for example, if you are sending Q2, then FreeAgent is going to send the cumulative amount for Q1 and Q2. And then HMRC is going to calculate the annual tax estimate for that taxpayer or for your client. And FreeAgent is going to bring that information from HMRC MTD platform to the system. Okay, so this is going to be a calculation made by HMRC with the information that HMRC has at that point in time. So it's going to annualize the rental income, the self-employment income, and adding any other income that HMRC may have at their system to bring here the annual tax estimate. Remember, this amount is going to show on the client's HMRC tax business account as well, because it's a calculation from HMRC. Okay, now I wanted to show you, I'm going to go back to my practice dashboard because I wanted to show you the solo trader license. So it's a different license I'm going to switch to. And you see the field, it's the same, so a blue banner, and you're going to have the similar menus in here, which makes it easier. So if the client's helping you with the bookkeeping, so they are going to feel comfortable because it's quite consistent the way they navigate, okay? Within here, if I go to my settings and I go to accounting categories to show here that you are going to be able to choose the tax return box as well. And then on this time, you're going to have the boxes reflecting the self-employment pages. So if I cancel here, and the banking is going to work exactly the same way as I showed you under the landlord. So you're going to have the transactions for approval from the system that recognize the patterns. And when there is anything that the system didn't recognize, is going to be in red. For example, in this case, this is a purchase of a capital expenditure, which FreeAgent deals with it in the system as well. So here, I'm going to put a straight line and explain transaction. And why I'm showing this to you is because FreeAgent is handling the calculation of the capital allowances. So within that asset, if you click edit details, you can select the tax treatment for that asset, and FreeAgent is going to calculate this for you, which is part of the MTD and also the final declaration. Okay, in order to submit, I go to taxes and self-assessment, and I go to my 24-25 so that you can see how it's going to show here for you. So you have the quarters, the annual summary, and this time is going to be the adjustments under the self-employment pages, individual information, and also the losses. And what's going to happen here? When I send the updates, I'm going to click here to show you. So you see here, Q1 and Q2, I have been submitted, so it's going to show me Q3 and Q4. So this is important to understand because the quarters are going to be open across the tax year, which means if I'm submitting Q4 now, but I have realized that I forgot invoices and bills and any other adjustment for Q1 and Q2, I can then make the adjustments at the time that they need to be made. So if it's a bill for January, I add a bill with, for April, for example, I add a bill with a date for April. And when I submit the next quarter, remember the submissions are cumulative, then FreeAgent is going to process all the income and expenditure for all quarters to send to HMRC the totals, on this case, the whole 24-25 to HMRC, okay? So the submissions, what they are doing, they are updating the self-employment page for this client. So in a quarterly basis, what the system sends to HMRC is the total for those boxes. Yeah, and then with this information, HMRC is going to calculate the annual tax estimate. So at the end of the year, what you're going to have the end of the year submission and the final declaration. Those are due at the 31st January from the following year of the tax year. And this is essentially, the final declaration is going to be essentially the tax return. The end of the year is going to have all the adjustments for that specific the tax page, for example, on this case, the self-employment page, and you're going to have all the different adjustments and allowances. So how it's going to work, before the final declaration, you submit the end of the year to update the information in HMRC, because in Q4, remember, this is due in May. In May, you may not have a full picture of the bookkeeping that you send in Q4. So then before the final declaration, you do all the adjustments, make sure the bookkeeping is correct, send at the end of the year, and then add all the other information for that self-assessment, like pay as you earn, charitable donations, pension relief, and send the final declaration, which you can do using FreeAgent, except for a couple of pages that's not going to be there, okay? But if you decide to submit the final declaration in your own tax software, for example, TaxCalc, CCH, ARIS, you can do so. On this case, what you're going to do, if your tax software is compliant with MTD, then your tax software is going to retrieve the information of the quarterly submissions direct from HMRC. You don't need to export information from FreeAgent to your tax software, okay? And here you have the end of the year updates that's going to show the totals of the income and expenditure and the adjustments. And if you are doing the final declaration in your tax software, then here you can mark the final declaration as sent, so that FreeAgent closes the tax period for you, and then you can finalize the final declaration or self-assessment in your tax software. Okay, I hope this was, I know it was a bit short, but I hope it was enough for you to give an idea of how to prepare the bookkeeping and make the submissions to HMRC.